All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be tuned in from around the world. Super excited to be back for another Discord office hours. Max 9 focus. Max 9 is still very much hot off the press. We're all still diving in and discovering all the wonderful new possibilities that Max 9 has. I'm very much excited about it. At this stage, I'm guessing some of you have already heard about the new ABL dot objects, which are a port. A lot of DSP code has been ported over from Ableton Live. Some of it one-for-one translations, and some of it are smaller pieces of DSP code taken from specific devices, and we get that beautiful functionality. And there's also the classics like Saturator, Ableton's Raw device, Drift, the synthesizer in all its glory. And I'm very excited to have Isabel Kaspriskie here. Welcome, Isabel.
Hello, Tom.
Isabel is an engineer here at Cycling 74, and she did all the heavy lifting, right? Basically, of porting all of this code, and it's a lot. How many, Isabel, how many ABL devices in total are there?
There are 10 devices and 55 of the DSP components.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, I still haven't explored all of them, and there's some real incredible, like, they're not secret. They're not a secret anymore, but like names that I'm not familiar with, like Tarp. Tarp is a classic. Like a classic 808 sine generator or like pulse generators. There's some incredible stuff in there.
Yeah.
So these, in some sense, these are a little, in cases like Drift and Raw, they're kind of a higher level building block. Something, in a sense, we call a higher level building block something that's a little more feature filled. Some creative decisions have been made with the object. So something like Drift is the perfect example. It's essentially a fully fledged polyphony synth with modulation built in, multiple filters, multiple oscillators within a single object. It's quite incredible to have something like that in Max that you can just simply pull in, plug in some MIDI, send it to an easy DAC, and you have a pretty awesome sound. But yeah, there's so much to explore in here. I think we're gonna start with uh taking a look at a patch here, Isabel. You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Dad.
Isabel has the ABL system patch, which was, you've possibly seen the video from the introducing Max 9 page. I'll post the link here in the chat. And here is the video. Whoa. And I'll also post the patch, but you can just I'll post the patch after we take a peek at it. We'll totally try, maybe answer some questions along the way, but we'll have a dedicated question time for everyone at the end. That'll be in about half an hour to 45 minutes. I'll try to keep. I see Groove Mechanic Robert has a question here.
Yes, that is a good question. It is all I can tell you off the top of my head without pulling up code on my screen to tell you an answer, so I won't do that. I'm could be sharing Ableton stuff, but it's a DFM. I think it's I
I'll
don't
increase Isabel's volume. I can do that. Yeah. Okay, Isabel should be a little louder now.
Yeah. All I can tell you off the top of my head is from the name. It's a DFM filter. I think there might be one from Super Collider or something. I don't even remember what it stands for. I can come back to you with an answer to that though. But there, yeah. It's one of the DFM is one of the filters in the Meld oscillator. I think it also might be used in some other places too. It might be in part of Echo.
Hmm.
It might be C sound. Yes, actually. I think that is what it is. Um, I
Ah,
can double
that's
check though.
cool. There you go. We're all learning stuff already. Where is the DFM filter object from?
Yeah, I
That's
remembered that because there are two, one of the things, just to start off with, like the fact that we don't have we don't have like the what am I thinking of, the soft tube stuff. So the filters we do have are like the DFM was a re-implementation of the C sound filter.
yeah, at the moment, it's I can answer this question, Julian. At the moment, there's no plans to move any ABL stuff to Rainbow, but it's not to
Um,
say that it won't happen, but there's no plans right now. We're focusing on Max 9 at the moment.
yeah, I can answer a little bit more about that too in a little bit, but why don't I can pop up the patch on the screen while we chat.
Yeah, let's do a little screen share.
Hopefully this looks
We can even walk around the patch a little if you
yeah.
like, Isabel.
Yeah, so that's probably a good way to start. Um, let's see. Does anybody have any suggestions of where they want me to start actually?
Maybe up in the top left there,
Yeah.
we've got it's essentially starting out with a live step to do the melodics, and then the live grid on the right is kind of like a pulse generator. And the first thing we're going into, the play MIDI subpatcher is essentially just, pulled straight out of the live uh the
Oh
live
yeah, the help patch.
yeah, except I added quantization. So I didn't need to put in perfect notation.
Nice. Nice, nice.
But yeah, we're then just sending the MIDI down into the drift object. Drift in this case has a few parameters set up as attribute UI objects: the unison, 32 voices, low pass. Oh no, thickness.
This
Uh, some of this started being made before the param connector function. So that's why there's some attribute UI objects in here still.
Nice.
I think if I'd made it from scratch, there wouldn't be a single attribute UI object, actually. I really like the param connect feature. It just makes life easy, especially with something like drift. Um,
Yeah.
there's something about, although you still have a lot of parameters, it seems just more manageable, you know, and something about when the attribute is an actual dial, somehow it's less when they're all attribute UI objects, they kind of start to look exactly the same. And then it's just a kind of classic subtractive path in a sense, uh into a redux. Worth mentioning too, I mean, I'm a big fan of Max's degrade, classic bit rate downsampler. And there's something interesting where Redux does something similar, but it does it differently. Like it has another type of sound. Code is definitely not a one for one.
Yeah. The weird thing, or like the funny thing to me about like the ABL objects is like some of them like did start in Max. Like I think I'm thinking of Roar probably, of like all these different stages. So like they start in Max and there's all these pieces of Gen that they were developing and developing the objects or developing the devices. And then here we go. It really is like going back into the like
We've
really
gone
does go circle.
full circle. Yeah, I actually have seen the I think you have too. I've seen the raw Max for Live device, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
which is essentially just a big gen patcher, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I love That is pretty funny. I love that it started at the Gen patch, got ported to live DSP, and came back to Max as an object.
Yeah, like it makes me think of the fact that I spend so much time making tools to make music. That it's just like, oh, I'm gonna port this thing to this place, and then I'm gonna port it from there to here, and then I just never end up making anything. And so like that's like such an important part. And like after the release of Max 9, I've like actually gotten to play with the stuff that I've been working on for, I don't know, or like everybody's been working on for a while. So
Yeah.
it's really nice.
No, it's pretty cool. I mean, the next thing down from Redux there is utility, which, not that you couldn't do mid-side
Right.
processing and, m- you know, moving something to make the low end mono or something like that, switching phase. But it's really nice to just have one object that's just a straight utility object that it's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife
Mhm.
as a max object.
Yeah. What is it that I find myself using actually use the DC blocker in it all the time, and it just feels
Oh
like, so
yeah.
sometimes it feels like this is overkill, but like it's just so nice to be able to have everything all in one and like panning, and yeah, it's
Yeah, I think it also touches on this interesting aspect of ABL where, you know, I think I've seen some people talking like, oh, this is like great building blocks for new users, but I also think there's just something about, like, I've caught myself already just being like, oh, I want a nice soft clipper. Let me just grab saturator. Uh, and knowing that it's just there and you can pull it up super quickly. I'm not all the naming is all set up and all I need to do is make a few live dials and assign them.
yeah. I think like usually I'm the kind of person that likes to build everything from the bottom up and have it, and like I'm like I would think I'm that kind of Max user, but like as I've become like just I don't know, been programming longer in my life and doing different things, I'm like more appreciative of being able to go between having something that is higher level while I work on another piece that is lower level without having to build like the entire thing. Like I love being able to configure things and going deeper into something. I like having the option there, but I also like when something like just sounds nice to start with, because like if I'm going to be building a sequencer or something, or I just want to like mess around with some like MIDI, like the MIDI side of things, like I don't really want to worry about making something that is like making my ears bleed while I'm testing it out, like it just gives you more options. And I don't think there's really anything. I feel like Max is like never been a place where it's like, oh, we have an opinionated, you need to do it this way or something. And so it just kind of feels like an extension of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it keeps the max philosophy going where, you can do there's 50 ways to skin a rabbit. Uh uh there's one thing there on the left, Isabel, I wanted to
Mhm,
just touch on, and actually I'm curious too.
mhm,
Uh, ABL DSP Shimmer. So
mhm,
we know that I know that's a reverb. It's one of the algorithms from Ableton's hybrid reverb. How
mhm.
many? I actually haven't done a count. How many of those algorithms from hybrid reverb got moved over?
I want to say five. Let's see,
Tides, Prism,
Dark
Shimmer.
Hall, Shimmer, and Quartz. And then
Yeah,
there's the device reverb, which I think
right.
is like just a semi-generic plate reverb. And that one's interesting compared to the algorithmic ones because it is, um, let's see, it goes from a mono channel to a stereo reverb.
Ah.
Um,
That
so
is not okay. That's not the reverb device. No, it is.
yeah, um,
Ah,
yeah, this is the plate reverb. At least that's what it is called within the ABL.
right.
Generates pseudo stereo output for mono input. Yeah. So I find that's a nice way to add in some if you're starting out with like, I don't know, like if I'm just like patching stuff with like the mono oscillators, um, it's like a nice way to just give yourself a little bit of stereo space.
Yeah, actually that's a good tip. I didn't I didn't know that it was mono in, stereo out. Um,
Yeah.
I've been appreciating the hybrid reverb algorithms. It's someone who's a little adverse to putting tons of VSTs in a live performance patch. You know, I kind of
Hmm.
like to, I prefer to keep it, you know, vanilla, for, you know, safety reasons, for future proofing, for ensuring, you know, trying to minimize the areas of failure. I
Yeah.
I've been subbing out what, you know, some reverbs and things and the likes with the shimmers and the tides, and yeah, they sound excellent.
Yeah, I agree. And like I haven't tried yet trying to do anything with like using the Hiss Tools package, which is basically I basically consider it being like built in, but like adding that convolution half to it, and then you can like really build your own hybrid reverb in Max, which is always an option.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I have heard some good reverbs done in Gen.
mm,
The ones from fours are really
mhm.
good. S has put in some great work there. I'm trying to think. There's some other folks who've done some really nice Max for Live reverbs.
The have you ever seen there's a post on the blog for Valhalla DSP where he talks about how the which is it Supermassive, the free the like the one that's purple. That one was originally prototyped in Max for
Yeah,
Live. But I think he did it just using like all pat. Like I don't even think he used Gen, which I just love that. Um, but I don't know if you can get the patches from that, but I think but I'm like pretty sure uh that is there's something out there probably. Um,
I think he even gives away one of his reverbs on fours. It's a free device. Um, generously sharing the code with the community, which is
mhm.
really nice. Um, yeah, I think also he has some stuff. S had some stuff in his GitHub as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, cool. Uh, okay, so what do you have a favorite reverb algorithm from the ones you ported over?
I'm kind of a sucker for shimmer reverbs. um, I like the adding a like 12 semitone up. But what else? So I don't know. I think Tides is kind of like a low key gets looked over. What is it that is in one of the what does the Tides modulation do? I can't remember.
Uh,
Does it sit? Did I actually sit? The intensity of texture in the reverb tail? Let's see.
mm,
I think it adds some modulation to the tail. I don't remember. But
yeah,
yeah.
it ties to me, if it makes sense, it seems a little more plate like,
Mm,
in its nature as a reverb. Definitely, if you're bringing in some uh very short uh transient material or anything, it just kind of really emphasizes the clang, uh
mhm,
and it's beautiful. This little piece here on the right with tides on the far right,
mhm,
we're running extra tone.
mhm.
Extra tone is like wild. It's like the uh Mark Fell object or something, or the telephone Tel Aviv object. Like the way it just effortlessly does that kind of ratcheting, syncopated. It's
Sort of
so much
thing.
fun.
Let's see. Why don't we play it a little bit? I don't know if it'll go through. Let's see.
Give it a blast, Isabel. Go on.
Yeah, here we go. Is this well, that's interesting.
Yeah, but if you modulate the frequency, like, so that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing there with the function. I'm running the line in there and kind of it just does these really nice
Let's see.
yeah,
Oh, we
ratchets.
can. I want to hear it on its own. I'm trying to do here. It turns out, so like, of course, this is like opening up the help patch, the one that doesn't have the sequencer in it. I was looking for, like Um, there's the small step sequencer. Have you played around with this yet? This little sequencer here?
ABL. Oh, the little sequencer is amazing.
Yeah, that was what is it?
Matthias.
Yeah. He added those in, so it should be in most of them, but move that over next Max release.
Yeah, this little mini sequencer is so, yeah,
It's pretty
I
adorable.
have to agree with S. Cute. So cute. That is,
It's pretty great. So let me see. I'm gonna pull up extra tone so we
I
can.
love that with Max 9, we're like in bringing the cuteness. Like, it's time to,
Let's see. Okay, so let me get something going on here.
don't know that I've ever thought of Max as cute, but I'm ready for it to be cute.
What is it, everybody? Cute era. Where we are.
Oh, that's cool.
Be longer. Why is it so hot? Anyway, I don't know what this is doing.
Yeah, no, there's so many kind of creative possibilities in here. Just double checking too. All of the inputs, right? All the parameters are audio rate, right? So we
Yeah,
can,
so this is actually something that I think is like not, or like it's hard to highlight it, but there's like some stuff. So there's interesting things about the inlets and the fact that all the inlets can accept both event rate and signal rate. The name of the sequencer is called small step. And yeah, so all of the inlets can accept either signals or event rate. And if you send it event rate messages, you know how you normally have to like use line tilde to keep things smooth and so you don't get the stepping between the parameter
yep.
updates. All of the ABL objects have internal parameter smoothing. So like when you do update something via param connect, it's not at audio rate per se, but it is smooth, so it's not getting steps. So I think it's what is it? A 5 millisecond param smoothing. So
Yep.
like unless you want it to be like super precise for a certain signal, like you purposely want to modulate it at audio rate, you can keep things more performant if you are just sending in a regular event rate like float to the various inlets. And that was a kind of a big step in making things sound much better when we were adding in like the param connect stuff. So
Yeah. I recall in development prior to us having the audio rate modulation, like uh when we did get that and we got it in there, it just, it changed everything, like the way that you could interact with these objects. And I think this is also something interesting to think about too, is that while there is this relationship to the code from Ableton, that the way the new possibilities for interacting with it in Max are very different to the way you would interact with parameters in Ableton.
yeah, exactly. What was the other thing I was
Yeah.
gonna say? Yeah, so
Um.
like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, folks, I definitely recommend checking out Extra Tone. Lots of possibilities there, especially running different frequencies into it to control the kind of pulse train or pulse generation. There's a lot of fun there. A real favorite of discovery of mine was Tarp, just over on the left there.
This
Tarp,
one.
abl.dsp.tarp. Maybe kick open the help file. So that's, I don't know much more other than what you've told me in the help file, Isabel, but um it is a really great just 808. And who doesn't need a nice, clean sounding classic 808 in their lives? But yeah, it's a blast. Particularly changing the tone. being able to modulate the tone control.
Let me play around with it. I'm doing it.
But yeah, I get, no one can complain about not having a good sub bass oscillator anymore. Not that I ever
Yeah.
heard, not that I ever heard anyone complain. Uh, I guess we can take a few questions here and there as we're going along, and this is a good one. It seems related to ABL in general, but
Mhm.
Berlin is asking, like, can you tell us about the rationale behind the naming scheme of the ABL objects? What is
Mhm.
DSP? What is device?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I can answer that. It's like pretty simple. Is the if there is a device in Ableton Live that is fully like the entire block, like the device is an object, it becomes abl.device dot name of that thing. But if it is a piece of the device in Live, it becomes DSP, which is why you get anything that's like as big as abl.dsp.tides, which feels like a big, large, might even want to call it a device, but it is a piece of a larger thing in Live. So that is like
right.
the differentiating factor. Um, yeah, that's the answer.
And that's why things like echo, redux, raw, drift, ABL dot device, because of that. I think of it more of as a one for one. And if it's parts of a device, right, then it's the DSP.
Yeah. And it's interesting too because there are like pieces within the code base where it's like they're components, like because you might have a compressor inside of one of the devices, right? Like inside of Drift or whatever. There's like internal ones. It's different than having like the device compressor.
Mm,
Um, so it kind of just gives the opportunity at some point to have like a smaller, lighter weight one, I suppose. But I don't remember the origins of like originally the objects were just like live dot uh name of thing, and
right.
then we wanted to have them all be grouped
Yeah, I
together.
like this naming convention because, well, I know that it leaves the possibility for us to expand on it and not get locked into a corner um in the future. Yeah. Super fun. Folks, anything else popping up for you? Any other questions here? It's pretty exciting. What else have we got in here? Well, there's Raw. Uh Raw somehow for me, every time I think Raw, ABL Raw, I immediately think of ABL Drift just because, like, as far as two of the most parameter heavy ABL devices uh in
For
the
sure.
in the mix. But it's
Yeah,
incredible. It's so much fun to have Raw in a patch.
let's see. What does this help look like? I don't remember. Oh yeah, an interesting thing about like the roar. So the difference is like there were two different things in terms of like how modulate like there's the internal modulation in roar and in drift, right? But they happen differently. Or well, they're in roar there's like this um there's a message in order to set the modulation based on it because there's just so many, it's like so focused on the modulation that it's like its own thing. And in this help patch, you can grab this handy dandy little thing to set up the message or to set up the modulation. And like it'd be interesting to see people doing different stuff like to create their own like modulation matrices and stuff like that. Um, so like I'm pointing this out because like if you look at the drift help patch, the way it does modulation is like formatted a little differently. I mean, I don't know if this is interesting to anybody but me, but let's see. Um,
Oh, I think it's interesting.
so there's like this is the modulation in which you can like just set the sources and the amount and destinations by like separate attributes here. Um,
Yeah. Also, looks like Julian Bale just posted something interesting in the comments. Julian, I believe what you've posted is piece of V8 JavaScript code to auto connect, automatically connect and assign live dials to parameters. That's cool.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, I hadn't even gotten to thinking about that.
So does this create one for every parameter or just some of them?
Yeah,
It
I'm
looks
not
like all of
sure,
them.
but I like the idea. It reminds me of the it's yet to make it to V8, but it's in the works. Is the parameter info handler that we have in the old JavaScript that can grab all any parameter enabled UI object in Apache and get all of its information. But
I love that.
yeah, I think there's so much potential here with the param connect object, and you know, I don't need a million event patch codes connect to an object to make my patch feel legitimate. I'm happy for patch codes to not be there and for things to be connected.
Yeah, same here. Like when I was making some of like the very early help patches, I'm sure you remember like the
Yeah.
original drift of like how many patch cords there were. It was just like a whole thing filled with like adder UI. Like the whole thing was
I, I
just
I
like
think
stacked.
the original drift help file it's like you couldn't see anything for the patch cables like
Yeah.
it
It
was
was
I don't think I'd ever seen so many patch cables in a such a there was only like three objects in there but the apart from the other UIs but like yeah.
yeah. It was-
um yeah, the param connect feature is for me that's what really was like the cherry on top, like the icing on the cake so to speak for the ABL objects. And obviously, the param connect feature is not uh, fixed in that it's not only for ABL, but for other parameter oriented objects like poly, gen, and I believe this functionality is planned to be extended further too
Mhm.
in the future. So that's very exciting. There's an intuitiveness to it that wasn't, because I did spend a lot of time with ABL before Param Connect came, and yeah, it just added this very nice fluid intuitiveness to working with the objects.
I particularly like it for things that are like enums, where you don't want to have to type out everything. Like you have to go through and look at every name of everything, and then you have to make sure it's hooked up, and then and like get everything. And if anything ever changes, that is like to me is like it's my favorite use of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. What else have we got in here? Let's see.
Yeah, I'm looking through.
So yeah, there is two drifts. One is doing the bass line, one's doing the lead slash melody. Uh then up the top there to the left, we've got some more reverbs. We've got echo. Echo is I mean it's so cool that we have echo. It's such a great
Where is
Ableton
it?
Live
Oh,
device.
here.
It's super nice to have that. Where does the able Robert has another question. Where does the ABL DSP modal resonator come from in live?
I want to say the Meld filter bank. One of them. Here, let me. Why don't I pop it up? Let's see if this. Um, I don't know if that actually.
Yeah, somehow some reason I seem to recall you saying it was Meld. Um
Yeah, there's a plate resonator and membrane resonator. Those are different though. Those are resonator. Interesting. It might be one of the oscillators.
hmm,
Uh, anyway, it comes from Meld. Can say that
it's
much for
from
sure.
Meld. Nice. Yeah. Very cool. What else is there?
So this is a question here about the difference between the ABL device limiter and Lemmy. And Lemmy was, I'm pretty sure you can correct me on this, Tom, but it was originally a thing that was from or that was like just a Tim Place built. It was like
Tim Tim Place Tim Place, sometimes known as Tap Tools, was a big developer of Pluggo plugins and also a long-time employee at Cycling 74. Um, Tim, I believe Tim coded Limmy for his own pluggos originally, and it actually wasn't in the Max distribution until I think sometime in Max 8. I'm not sure it was even in the original release of Max 8. I think it came with 8.1 or something.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it was like because I know of it from like the Min dev
yeah.
kit stuff, and I think it just got moved over from that and put into the main Max
Yeah, you're
distro.
right. You're right. Now I recall. Yeah, he had the source code in the MinDev kit, and if you downloaded the MinDev kit, it was already pre-compiled, and people were doing that, and so many people were doing that that it got decided to put it into the main distro. Kind of like
Yeah.
Min thread check.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think those are the two big things because I was originally like you remember I was like doing package manager stuff
Yeah.
and min stuff and at the time it was like we were trying to deprecate people downloading it from the package manager because of some issues with like one of the patches like in something like it was a whole thing and but those were the two objects that people would write in and ask for
I
so
also feel like the Apple Silicon change from Intel to Silicon forced us to make a few decisions there because like people were like my Limmy from Min Dev Kit's not working anymore, and
yeah
um
yeah
we were like, oh, okay, I guess enough people want it, we'll put it in the distro. Yeah, Limmy is a classic, and it also made it over to Rainbow, which is cool. But yeah, they're pretty different limiter algorithms, right, Isabel?
yeah
You've seen the back end.
yeah I've seen the insides yeah they're like Lemmy tilde is well you can find the code on GitHub from the min dev kit it's still there it's fairly simple and pretty bare bones and the limiter from Ableton is
Not
off the
bare
top of my head
bones.
yeah it has a lot more it has a lot more going on so I don't want to call it like higher quality but like it has a lot more it's what you would expect from the Ableton limiter and it just has more parameters too it gives you I think it gives you more options there's like I can't think off the top of my head there's like different smoothing can't
Yeah.
remember but yeah
No, high harmonics, I wouldn't say more robust would be a fair thing to say. It sounds like we're kind of discounting Limmy.
yeah
I think I would say something like it's more it's just had more engineering done on it and more coding put into it.
I would just
Um
say more capability is probably the better way to put it.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah, it's yeah, Limmy's perfectly robust. It's not going to give you any issues. But yeah, it's probably like yeah. Beline has a good question here.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how much we can speak to this at the moment. Obviously, it's only been 2 weeks since Max 9 came out. I think honestly, we're really lucky to even have Isabel here. I'm surprised she's able to function. Um, so talking about future roadmaps this early is a little tricky, but we
Yeah,
definitely, I know we intend to extend ABL.
yeah, I can
Um,
say more about it. Like not like super like I can't tell you like oh in like 2 months we're gonna have this or
no
that.
timelines,
No
no
timelines.
timelines.
But I can say like I can generally talk about like what I know won't come through. Just based I think it's useful to know like I'll finish my thought here, which is I'm in the original Max 9 Discord like release kind of office hours. People asked about there are certain devices that are just not going to be able to be made into ABL objects because of the way the Ableton codebase is. Like ABL objects come from an internal Ableton library called ABL that like is used throughout Ableton's products. And certain devices like operator and analog, just like unless they are ported into this library, like it just isn't feasible to create these objects without having to rewrite every piece of it. But that said, like most or pretty much every new thing that is added into live is added into like this library. So like as live like grows, this library can also like these objects like could feasibly also grow, just unless there's like other things like licensing or just other like incompatibilities like that I like don't even know about because they don't exist yet. But like there are certain things that are in live still that haven't made it into the ABL package, and they are on the roadmap and aware of them. There's also some
Yeah.
like smaller other things that I know that would be cool. But yeah, I'm not really sure. What was the thing I was thinking about? It would be
I think the other
nice.
one is like the stuff that's not going to make it is anything you see with AAS or the likes
Yes.
inside of Ableton that is a collaborative device in that Ableton has secured, a third party code from another developer. That's not gonna it's not gonna make it to us.
Yeah. Um, yeah. The legal stuff is not under my purview. Right. So
Yeah. Honestly, it's probably not impossible. I
yeah.
never say it's not impossible or not possible, but it's certainly a lot more hurdles would need to be navigated for that to happen.
Yeah. And like I could segue a little bit into like answering the like both, so that's like a good way to talk about like both the UI stuff and the rainbow integration. Those are like two questions I've seen that I could touch
Yeah,
on a little
yeah.
bit.
When do we get it in Rainbow? Um,
Like from a technical standpoint, it's again, it's not impossible for like this it's just the way Rainbow works. If you've ever like poked under the hood, like it is its like own thing, and like integrating this other C++ library into it would be a huge effort. And then also the questions of like how like export, and there's just a lot of questions there where it's like it's not impossible. Like it is like I could imagine a lot of effort going into it to being feasible, but that's just why it in this current release, that's why it's like that.
and
And like
the other interesting aspect there, and I could see that where Ableton, I don't think they would they don't feel uncomfortable about obviously ABL being in Max whatsoever. But the second that someone can export parts of their code as a plugin to a piece of hardware to, you know, other
mhm,
other other unknown worlds, that adds almost this legal implication or yeah.
yeah. And yeah. And like to the other piece too, of like the UI that I mentioned, like that is also not part of like the ABL library. Like the ABL part is the core DSP, and the UI is like all the other stuff that goes into having Note or Live or whatever, that uses the DSP that everybody's familiar with from all the integrations, right? Like the UI is like written in like a completely different way, and it's not the same way that Max objects are written. So like no, it's not impossible to rewrite their UIs and stuff, but it would like you'd have to write. It's just yeah, like but like also I find it kind of like not really necessary in a lot of cases. Like part of the nice bit of having the DSP separate is that you can make your own UI and make like do whatever you want with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And especially like going back to like the param connect feature, like it's like super easy to just like you can just like create your own macros like you would in a device rack in Ableton, right? Like
Yeah, yeah. You made
so.
me think about something. You mentioned that, obviously that we have access to anything that's made it into ABL. So things like Operator, which is much more of a legacy synth inside of Ableton, it's not part of the ABL code base at the moment. Is the you might know this, maybe not, but
Mhm.
do you know what does Note use? Does Note use parts of the ABL code base?
As far as I'm aware, that's sort of part of why. it exists is like it
Right.
was part of a whole modernization effort. And so they needed to have a library where they could be more portable.
Ah,
And so
interesting.
I think if you like when you're like exporting from Note, I don't think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know like that it actually exports to anything that uses operator or things like that. I'm not entirely sure,
No,
so don't
no,
quote me
no.
on that. But
It's
like,
no, those things are definitely not in there. It's only the much more modern synths like drift and the likes. Yeah, you just made me think about something. I did see that the most requested, we're going on a slight tangent here, but the
yeah.
most requested feature of Ableton's Move, the new piece of hardware, was operator. Um, and yeah, maybe it does get ported to ABL.
The
Um,
people have spoken.
the people have spoken. Then we can, yeah, and that talk about another full circle moment. If we were to get operator in ABL, I've seen the operator Max patch, Robert's original prototype.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was fully a full operator was a fully fledged Max patch. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the thing about operator is like it's the UI that is so nice about it. Like you can
Yeah.
there's like we have like I mean now there's like so many different FM like um
Yeah.
already in like in
For
Meld and
for
like these things.
operator synths,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like you can make your well there's the questions of like well how do you do anti-aliasing and things like that and how do you make like good sounding quote FM synths. Um like yeah, I mean that's its own like rabbit hole, but
Yeah, operator's great. It just has enough functionality there to be able to get into some really interesting sound. It doesn't have anything more than it needs. And compared to a lot of modern synths, you could even call it minimalist. Um,
yeah.
but it's still a classic. And I just think because it was one of those first kind of synths inside of live that there's just so much legacy uh content out there, packs, presets. It's got to be inside of millions of Ableton live sets. Um, it's just a mainstay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think actually, if I recall, it was operator that really was the first thing to really kick off the like preset sample marketplace in the context of like the whole Ableton Live community. Like,
Wow.
yeah, it was the first thing I really recalled people selling preset packs for
Mm-hmm. Wow,
in
that's
the
crazy.
in the world of Ableton. Um,
Yeah.
it was one of the big groups was one. It was, maybe you know this guy, Isabel, Andreas Wetterberg.
It
You've
sounds
probably seen
familiar.
him in you've probably seen him in the forums. But
Yes.
he had a group called Covert Operators, and they were prolific. They were prolific for like from 2006 to 2010. They just released so much stuff. It was insane.
Man.
Um, What was really funny, because Wetterberg is actually a really good Max programmer. I never understood why they didn't transition to making. They made a few Max for Live devices, but while they didn't fully flip to the Max for Live marketplace type scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's still around. He pops up in the forums here and there. I think he's even in the Discord, but he's not very active these days. Yeah, Andre, he's a super nice guy. He has a group. I forget what his group's name. Beautiful Goblins, maybe you recall. He has a group. There's like a whole group. It's not his covert operators group, but he has this whole group of performers, and they did this insane performance at Ableton Loop. I think it was 2018 or 2017, but it was incredible. it was like the best multi-person Max performance I've ever seen. So there were like 7 or 8 people around a table, um, all with laptops, all running Max, but they were all synced. So they were
Mhm.
all talking to one another through their patches, and it was wild. Like the audience went the whole, yeah, it was memorable. Like entire loop, everyone from loop was there. It was like 1,000 people, and it was the whole place erupted. Like, yeah, it was very cool.
Wow. That's one of those things where you wish you had a recording of those, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I did take a couple of small video clips. Maybe I do have some photos, but like the table was a massive laptops and various MIDI controllers, but like there was just this weird, strange cohesiveness to the whole performance, and it was so cool to see all these Max patches that I had no idea what they were doing, but their screens were full of different weird UIs.
I love
Custom
the
made.
idea of having a fake UI, like one that just makes you think all this stuff is happening and like but
Oh,
like
yeah.
oh
You
cool.
know the classic the classic. I almost hate to bring these guys up.
Oh
You know,
no, I know. I mean, I know it's coming.
you know what's coming, right? Like the classic fake UI legends uh you know is like this patch. I'm gonna post it in the chat. And there's a few others from them, and
Uh-huh.
Sean has declared many times that like what Sound on Sound were doing an interview with them or something, and they're like, can we see the patch? And so he made a fake UI. My favorite one is there's an Norteca patch where it's just got a whole bunch of color swatches in it. And I love this idea of like Sean or Rob like moving colors around while they're playing, and it
As if it's doing something. You
just
know,
changing
like
the how are you playing? I'm just changing the color of my triggers while I'm playing.
what if I think it'd be so cool though, like if people took those patches that like are totally like one person makes the UI with no idea what it's actually doing and like tries to make it as impossible to turn into like an instrument and then or like some sort of like rig to use and then like somebody else has to figure out some way of like turning that into something usable like in a sort of different uh people passing along remixes to
Oh
people
no,
along
that's
the
a
line.
great idea.
That'd be
Yeah,
fun. Like, what if that was a challenge or something? Like, here, I'll give you like this UI. You have to make it do something. Like,
that'd be a fun game. A little bit like that's a bit like the what is that game you pass around, you draw something and you fold it over
oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, is it there? Well, there's telephone, and then there's like there's one called telestrations, which is like you draw something and somebody has to write down what they think it is, and then the next person draws what that person
yeah.
wrote. Yeah, I like that.
It's honestly like, I mean, it's like opening your friend's Max Patch, honestly. I'm
Yeah.
like, the first thing that goes through my head usually is like, what the hell is going on in here? Like, like it's really hard to, yeah, exquisite corpse, exactly, Todd. That's what I was thinking. Um, yeah, I mean, even this picture Julian just posted that, I mean, that in a sense, it's funny because it looks like a Max Patch, like, but it's a draw.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, there's something to that though. Like, and yeah, deciphering other people's patches is very, very hard sometimes. Um, I saw some back when I did tech support at Cycling 74. I saw some classics like, "Hey, my patch is not working." And you open it up, and it's just like a gajillion sub patches and patch codes and no comments, no order of operations. Like, it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. You're alive.
It's like it's its own art, you know?
So it can be very revealing, like, yeah. Um, Folks, any other questions about ABL? I mean, I feel like I'm having a great old chat here with Isabel. We've gone off on a few tangents now. Uh, I mean, ABL's incredible. Honestly, I'm still just looking forward to having more time. I'm looking forward to the upcoming holidays to just sit back and not to be able to like create with it. Not that I haven't been making stuff. I mean, we made a bunch of these patches and stuff like this, but like for me, it's like when I can get it and put it into my own sound, my own art, then it starts like making sense. I have plenty of ideas on leveraging some of this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite, Isabel? Is there
I
like
was just thinking, like, okay, so I have like a few that I think are like not hidden gems, but like you might not notice is like really useful. Like
Oh
I'm a
yeah,
big fan of,
tell us about some of the ones that
yeah,
are not immediately obvious. Like, honestly, I did just stumble onto Tarp. I had no
yeah,
idea there was an 808
yeah, where am I?
generator in there.
So, okay, so if you go to the extras menu, let me open the launcher here.
I am glad though. If I type 808 into Max's search, Tarp is the first thing that comes up.
Yeah, so let's see.
That's good. But you need to know to type 808. Folks, did you everyone see how Isabel pulled up this just now? It actually is very useful. Um, so it's just up there in extras. There's a dedicated ABL DSP objects uh patcher underneath extras, and that can be very handy for just pulling stuff up and exploring all of the objects that are here.
Yeah.
You
Um,
all have that in your Max 9 installer.
yep. Yeah, so some of the ones that yeah, and if you click on any of these, it'll open up the help patch and you can play around with it. But some of my like ones that I like playing around with are the modulators that come from Meld. So many things come from Meld because of the way like it just like exists as like a bunch of, you have so many options and you just um uh patch
And Meld
together
was
in.
one of the newer Meld's
Mhm.
one of the newer synths too, I imagine. So the DSP code's right there in the ABL and available to us.
Yeah. There are like the modulation sources within like the modulation matrix in Meld, and there are a bunch of these different modulators. So there's a ramp, there's a Euclidean sequencer, like pulse generator.
Euclidean.
Yeah. But I can show you on ramp here. So like, okay, so on the first tab, it shows like the basic use of them. And let's see, watch me crash Max. Um, I probably have like, am I running the debug build? No, there you go. Let me bring it open. Um, but it has like a basic tab, which shows you, oh, I know what it's. Open it up again. Oh, yes. Okay, so there's a ramp generator. You can change the frequency in the first inlet. There's also an attribute for it. Um, and let's see, let's make
Ooh,
it.
that's cool.
And so there's different, you can just easily get like useful modulation sources. And
Mm,
these are like things that you like, okay, this wouldn't be so hard to make, but also like, I don't know, it just seems so useful to me to have these like very like fairly simple shapes that are
yeah.
like have really useful like macros. And then within it also there's transformers that you can apply to them. So within each of these, like if you look in live, you'll be able to see this as well. But in here, you can see you can have two effects added to the modulator in
Oh, that's
series.
cool.
And so like there's this an offset, a tenuverter, a gate. You can like slew them and skew it unipolar, bipolar, and stuff. And there's also like I think triggered envelope is pretty cool. Um, some of these like make more sense on certain or certain shapes than others, but like
Yeah.
it's super useful to be able like to just like swap it all the way to being a bipolar signal or like make it all the way to being unipolar. Like here, let's actually, I'm gonna do that. See if this,
You
actually,
could take this too and just flip it on its head with modulo or uh, multiplane modulo, subdiv, rate. There's
yeah,
so
yeah.
many pulse, pulse algorithmic trigger possibilities here.
And there's also, let me show a few of those. So there's also DSP modulator. So these are just basic shapes though, but like here you just got like, you've got an LFO. You can stick it to do like, it's just super useful, I think.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's cool.
So like that one, let me see what other ones. There's also alternate, which is like low key, like kind of great because like see, it literally just alternates between two values, but like with all the extra effects you can add on to it, just built in right there, it's like super useful. Um,
Yeah, I hadn't
like
even
you can
looked at
add a
this.
slew to it. Let's see. Um, Fade in and fade out. Like I don't know. So these I think are people should check out. You might not necessarily. And there's also a random walk
Oh
uh,
yeah, sweet.
going on. So
That's cool.
would recommend these. I think, is there anything else in here that's like,
Is there any
um,
Perlin noise or?
that's a good question. I don't think so. The
Yeah,
only
I was
noise
gonna
that,
say I don't think I really struck anything like that inside of Ableton either.
yeah,
Um,
I saw that there's somebody had a cool V8 patch that used it like very recently in
I
Discord.
actually just made one myself the other day, but yeah,
Nice.
I was thinking more audio, but I'll throw it down here. Um, yeah, it's pretty fun. Here's a little V8 Perlin noise. There's also an L system in there too. Um, yeah, V8 makes things so much better.
Yeah. And like these filters too, I think like have spent a lot of time thinking about like all the oscillators and the different like and like the bigger, I guess, devices, but there's also like just really nice filters in here too that
Yeah.
are just like they've got everything you like need at a high level, and then you can, if you want
Right. Yeah. It is nice to have a few more like you know, vanilla good sounding filters as like not that I don't like biquad or one pole or resin. I would never talk badly about those objects.
to.
Um but yeah, it's always nice to have more, right? I mean,
Hmm.
um and yeah, being especially the audio rate modulation, param modulation is kind of really cool for doing some getting into those weird audio rate filtering whatever worlds like you want to get
Hmm.
into. I think that I'm really curious to start throwing a bunch of these together, the ramps and
Hmm.
the alternates and have them modulating filters in ABL and yeah.
Yeah, things that I'm like excited about, like in my own like messing around with stuff is just like how do you make like a super meld or something? Like, can you make an MC meld by like just putting together the pieces and making certain parts like uh just like you can have like 16 channels of it or something like that, or like have, instead of having only like 3 stages available, how do you make something where there's like 7 stages or something, like
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
making things go crazy in the way that you can with Max.
Folks, I hope you were listening carefully just now because Isabel just low key dropped some magic. Uh, ABL is MCable. So you can have an MC dot able DSP dot raw at channels 512.
Let's like,
And
okay.
you might open up a porthole to another dimension.
Yeah, where do we go? Like you can easily have your Euclidean generator in MCable. Like I don't know, like what does that even mean in some of these cases? I don't really know. This was like This wasn't even, I haven't played around with this a lot, but like, so the swarm oscillators in Meld, I think they're great. But like they already sound like they're like you have some MC with some little bit of deviate applied to it, but like what if you took that and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean that's another possibility right there is some yeah, I can't imagine. Okay. We're definitely gonna open some portals up to other dimensions. No doubt. That or a sinkhole. Um, too many roars. What did he die of? He um yeah, that's cool. Shimmer I'm saying B points.
Sweet.
Oh wow, Berlin, that's cool. Uh yeah, I mean emceeing the Shimmer emceeing any of the able reverbs, I'm sure would be very interesting. Um and I imagine you can deviate too, right, Isabel?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's
like
where the magic would be with I think with you could literally have a drift and probably go for a super unison or something.
um the
Would that work?
devices are not yet MCable. It's the
Ah,
DSPs because they're all just using the wrapper, which
right,
can be a
right,
little
right, right.
weird because then you
Okay,
get like
gotcha.
this the stereo is a little like it's weird to have like the concept of MC having like a left and a right channel. So
Got
like
you,
that's
got
like
you, got you.
you
Yeah,
kind of like have to work around stuff, but you can yeah, you can have all of these are MC wrapped.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of possibilities there for creative, interesting, creative outcomes for sure. Uh, I'm gonna put that on my holiday list. Um, Zhongli Shimmer Verb times 512 channels.
Hit up Tom's Gumroad.
That's quite the Christmas jingle. Um, yeah, this is cool. Isabel, this is really great. I mean, I'm learning stuff about MC here, and I've been staring at these objects for a while now. But I think this is the case for a lot of us at cycling, is that we're all been off in our own little spots, bringing Max 9 to everyone else, and now we get to dive in, discover more ourselves, keep developing it, and yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah,
All
like
right.
I'm like watching the JIT Geom stuff and like I'm like, whoa, mind blown along with everybody else. Like,
Yeah, yeah. The Jet stuff is fascinating. Another spot that I'm excited to explore more. Folks, the jet geometry stuff we did just mentioned, we had Rob Ramirez last week, head of jitter engineering, on here this time last week. That is already available in the YouTube playlist. This call will actually be up a little later today. Um, if you'd like to watch it back again or send it to a friend. Any questions for Isabel while we have her on the line? Is a good time right now. Otherwise, we might wrap up here shortly. We've put in a solid hour now. Isabel, this is awesome. Is there anything else that comes off the top of your mind regarding ABO? Like anything at all? I mean, I feel like we touched on a lot.
yeah. Um,
A groove mechanic has a good question here. I was curious a bit about this myself, and I know some of it, but like, for you, what was the process of converting this stuff? Like, what did it look like?
mhm,
Uh,
yeah. Um,
did you work direct? You did work straight from the ABL C code, right?
yeah, it's the ABL code is C++ and um the ABL objects currently use the Min API just for ease of um wrapping the ABL code. And so like each of the objects essentially like creates an instance of whatever processor exists in the ABL code, and then on top of it, it just wraps all of the different like functions that are available. That like in live you would see it as a macro or whatever, but like in the Mend code, then it's just like, okay, we create this we create an attribute, and then we call this function, and like maybe we have like, and then there's like the adding the smoothing, or like making sure that there's all of like mixes, like the mix parameter is available or whatever. So it's a lot of like it is a lot of just wrapping of ABL code. But I did get a chance to like, unless a lot of the debugging ended up being like, oh, why is this suddenly blowing up all this like code? Like, shouldn't this just be fine? But it's just like, oh, the ranges have to be like set this way. So like finding like ways in which so I did end up like, I've like poked through quite a bit of like the actual processing that happens on the ABL side, but I like, there's so much props to the Ableton work that has gone into like making these DSP algorithms and stuff, and that's like all on that side. But yeah, that I think that maybe that answers some of the question. Like
Yeah.
there were gen patchers that like existed before the creating the ABL code, and then the ABL code got like ported into these objects. So like I didn't necessarily have like didn't necessarily work from the gen patchers, but that actually like could have been part of the process. But yeah.
But I think if I'm not mistaken, it just made more sense given where we were intending to take the code, right? It just made more sense to work from the ABL C++, right?
Yeah, and that's how it's like easier to like it's easy to keep it in sync, because it's just like, okay, well, whatever's in ABL, that's what's in
But
these objects.
we did do a little more than just wrapping, right? I mean, we had to do some
Right.
stuff there to make the parameters run at audio rate.
Yeah, yeah. There was a
Um,
lot of work that went into creating like essentially like a generic wrapper around ABL code so that you can plug in like whatever processor, and then how it
nice.
like smooths the parameters. Or yeah, so it's to answer the follow-up question, it is like 98% of cases straight one-to-one. Like there's cases where like um it makes more sense to have like rescaled some of the inputs, like in the case of like the FM bass tilde, like that oscillator. Um Internally it has to like change the octave of the pitch so that like it is the actual MIDI note, because when you're playing it in live, it like internally drops it down like 2 octaves or something, and it kind of just didn't make sense to leave it doing that. So like there are some cases where like small adjustments aren't made, but they're not like mind-blowing math going on, like or whatever.
Right. The general Ableton user who came over to Max probably wouldn't know or even realize that that change is in place, right? Because like we've
Mhm.
kind of made it back to parity in some
Yeah,
sense with the device that exists in live.
yeah. And that's also a reason for a lot of the cases where um, there are certain values. And again, I'll go back to Meld because that just shows up so much, of where like there's the macro values of like it's at a normalized range of 0 to 1. So like that's the reason for a lot of the inlets being like mapped 0 to 1, because that's just how it is in the Ableton code.
Right, because live does do that normalization in places and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I had noticed 0 to 1 in quite a few places. Where I think typically, if we made an object in Max, we probably might not use 0 to 1.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
exactly. Like coming to mind of like 0 to 1, and some of them is like let me like pop up one of them. I think it's Crackle, maybe one of like the yeah, this might be a good example of like where a zero density isn't really zero density. Like I don't think it actually becomes like, yeah, it doesn't actually
Right.
become zero. Like but that's just because it's parity with the live
Yeah.
code.
I think this makes sense. Also, I just like I love this idea of like seasoned Ableton users being like, you know what, I'm gonna make the mega device now and I'm gonna make it in Max for Live and yeah.
Yeah. For these questions about, is it possible for the oscillators to be driven by a phaser instead of frequency? Off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I think I actually think could be possible.
Yeah,
Actually, I think it really depends. Not sure. Feature request.
feature request. All right, folks. Isabel, thank you so much for spending some time with us here in Discord for the office hours. I think I speak for everyone with saying how much we really appreciate your work here. The ABL objects is incredible. They're very exciting. I think there's a lot here for everyone. And I see that. I see that from the folks who are here in the chat. You know, I see some seasoned Max users. I see some new faces. I think there's a lot here for all of us to explore. And I think there's something cool about, you know, leveraging these, trying something, right? I kind of
Mhm,
would use Beep or even Visi like this, like just something quick. I want to try something. I want to put it in a patch code. I don't want to spend 5 days coding up this thing from scratch.
mhm.
See if the idea works, and then I can go off and make my own nuanced reverb or modulator or whatever.
Mhm.
But you can immediately see the potential by having objects like these. And then, yeah, if you want to make your own reverb that has your special DNA on it, then you can. And I
Yeah.
think that's the beauty of them. But I really like this. Like, I think there's something here for everyone, which is pretty cool. Because like sometimes it's not always the case. Sometimes you need to do some other stepping stones before you can dive in. But ABLs, I think, is one of those rare exceptions where I can see people from all different backgrounds getting something out of it.
Yeah. It's a middle ground that just wasn't there before, I think.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Um, cool. Well, folks, any last questions? Oh yeah, Robert has a good point. Groove mechanic. Yeah, it's cool to test out your own stuff against Ableton's DSP stuff. That's a good idea. I hadn't even thought about that. And everyone should know Groove Mechanic, fellow Australian down there in Adelaide, um, makes some incredible Max for Live devices. It's nice to be able to have an afternoon Discord so our Australian friends and others off there in Asia can drop in. Awesome. Any reading advice? Yeah, all right. We normally keep that question to your regular Discord office hours, but Isabel, I think you did drop some good books on us the last time you were in office hours. Um,
That's possible. Here, I'll answer the question before
oh yeah, I
uh
see Robert
the
has one more
latency.
question here. Yeah.
That is a good question. The latency, there's no way to measure it. Like there isn't like uh any outlet that's going to tell you the latency of these objects. So I think I would have to get back to you on that. It might be because that does make sense. You need to be able to define it in your own Max Live. But yeah, I'll get back to you on that. Take a look and yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious on that too. Maybe Isabel, you can drop back into the Discord later when we work that one out.
Yeah, because as is, you might have to just measure it yourself, and then, you know, um, there's no way to auto report that right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's probably what I would come back and suggest. Um, but yeah, to go back to the other question of reading advice, um, do you mean like are you thinking of
Books
about
or
the ABL objects, or do you want what
C
novel am I
plus plus
reading?
code?
Yeah, I mean, I've got I've got my shelves of books that, like you open and you've read like 5 pages of the book and they're very useful, but you have it so much. Have I gotten anything recently? Oh, I mean, this isn't really ABL, but have you seen the what is it called? The Alan Strange electronic music, or is it Systems and Signals? There was like a reprint of it that came out on Kickstarter like a year
They did a
ago.
reprint? No
Yeah,
way.
I've got a copy of, and I have like a PDF too. I think I don't know if they still have them, but if I have a link to that, I mean,
Because that was
grab.
that Alan Strange book for was out of print for a long time, and I remember that copies of it
Yeah,
were selling
dang.
on Amazon for like $400 and stuff.
Yeah, I got a copy for it. It was like 50 bucks. I don't know if they're like still
Oh,
printing
no
it,
way.
but it
That's
was like,
cool.
yeah, I'll put a link to the Kickstarter, but I don't
I
know
didn't
any
know that they did
details.
I didn't know they did a reprint of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was this. They might like still be selling the PDF. I don't know the details. I haven't looked back at it, but you can always email the guy.
Yeah, yeah. Super cool. Wow. Well, I'm glad someone asked you because I wouldn't have I missed that one.
Yeah,
Cool.
off the
Well,
top of my head. There we go.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. You don't need to drop anything more, Isabel. I'm not sure my wallet can handle it. Um, folks, this has been really great. Isabel, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk with us all about ABL. We'll definitely have you back in the future, maybe for a regular office hours down the line when we've got some more stuff to talk about.
For sure.
Folks, this reboot of Discord office hours. This is a Max 9 focus, and we're going to be continuing this more for the next few weeks. We obviously have a lot more features of Max 9 to talk about. I'm very excited to say that next Wednesday, so a week from now, 10 a.m. Pacific time, so it's not so friendly to Australia and our friends in Asia, unfortunately. It will be at 10 a.m. We have Joshua Kit Clayton. He's a CTO of Cycling 74 engineer. Joshua did all of the work for bringing V8, JavaScript V8 to Max 9, as well as all of the code box literally everywhere, code box everywhere. Um, so all of that new functionality, along with a lot more. Joshua will be here with us next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's the 20th of November. Uh, I'll make an event. It'll be up in the next few days. I'll post about it in general. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been real. Thanks, Isabel.
Thanks, everyone.
See you all later. Isabel, stick around a second. Bye, folks.